Hello, Darklings! So I wanted to do a video talking about sort of my artistic process, different ways of approaching the artistic process, and that type of thing. I don't really know how to recap it. So technically, anybody can learn to draw and do art. Technically. It helps to have a little bit of an inherent spark or gift or whatever to try and get going, to actually have the will to learn. Because even though anybody can learn to draw, they can be taught to see the way an artist sees and get their hand to mimic the things that it wants, it does take right-brained thinking and the creative will to create art. So, as I'm an American, and I experienced this growing up, the American school system makes people left-brained. It works on a very left-brain process. It's very step by step, very analytical. Whereas creative thinking is right brain. I'm fortunate that I happen to be 50-50. So I was able to go through school with relative ease and also be highly artistic. But not everybody has quite this advantage, and it's totally capable to switch one side off and switch to the other. You just have to learn how. I can't tell you. You have to figure that out. I'm just sort of as a guide or something. So I was fortunate. I am the only person in anywhere in my family's history to have any kind of artistic talent. I'm also one of the strangest people in my family because of this. As I put it, being an artist is both a blessing and a curse because it kind of costs a little bit of your sanity and your ability to function. I can think of no artist in all of history that has had a totally normal, stable, functioning life. They're all a little nuts in one way or another. They have to be in order to have this type of creative energy to create, to build, to make things. Artists are damaged people, but it makes them capable of creating. And it's not to say that all damage is bad damage. It's just to say they're not quite on the same level as people who are normal. So I sometimes can't just sit there and draw something on a piece of paper and that's what I want to get across. There's 10 billion zillion ideas in my brain that I always want to be drawing and creating, and sometimes just drawing it on a piece of paper isn't going to make the cut. Sometimes I have to sort of branch out and try other things, whether it's making jewelry, making these vests. This is another one that I finished today. You'll see the back if you check my Etsy later. There's so many things to create. There's so many things that I want to make and want to be in this world that isn't there already. And that's cool, but it's also kind of destructive to my mental health. Oh well. For example, on a slightly lighter note, I kept having these ideas for what I wanted to draw, and I wasn't able to make them exactly happen. So this has it's 2 plates of glass, and in the middle is a drawing I did. It's watercolor and colored inks and India ink, and it has this cool etched pattern thing that's in the glass. This was a discounted frame at Michael's, but I painted this, and I cut it out with an X-Acto and put it in here because it looked more interesting than simply putting something out on a page. Sometimes you have to come up with new ideas and little tricks and little ways to try doing things in order to get what you're trying to do across. Sometimes I can't just draw what I want to express. There's so many different things, tiny things that I can't quite capture, not just in drawing, but not quite in writing, and I have to sort of improvise. So this was something that I was messing around with, and this is a little memory board thingy that I got from Michael's. I had to put it back together because I kind of bought it broken, but they have all this stationery and stuff that I glued in here. A vial with a local flower, some extra flowers, other things that I've just glued in here, along with a small drawing that I've done that I pasted some fabric on top of. And sometimes this type of thing is what I call sort of a brain dump. A lot of this is not my art. It's not really even my idea. It's just trying to get patterned paper to fit in boxes and then putting other things on top of it. It's a nice exercise to sort of get my brain to calm down when I have too many things going on, when I'm thinking of too many projects that I can't make happen and it starts to overstress me. Sometimes doing little fun things like this that are a lot easier to think of and create makes things easier. But then other times I come up with things that are exceedingly complex. So this one I did a ballpoint line art on and then did colored inks and some watercolor to get it finished. Cut it out, and you can't tell, but it has this purplish background, and that's a piece of fabric. This is also one of the frames, like this other one, where it doesn't have a real back. I just cut out this fabric to fit the inside of the glass. If you put it up against a window, you can see through it. It's kind of cool. This is based on a friend, Shiloh Von Porcelain. She goes by on the internet. She's a model, and she's very sweet. But sometimes there's so many things that I can think of that I want to paint, that I want to create, and sometimes they're complex, and sometimes they succeed, and sometimes they're really simple, and sometimes they don't succeed. I have all these little ideas and all these little tiny fascinations that I want to incorporate into my art to the point that it either gets too busy or I just get lost. There's so many things that I really love. For example, so one of my favorite film directors is Guillermo del Toro. Common themes in his films and in his artwork, because he's very good at painting. He loves shellfish, insects, vampires, complementary color schemes, and clockwork. If you've watched his movies, you'd probably notice this. He also likes things that are heavily organic and have Japanese influences. You'll notice it if you watch his films consistently. Every artist type of person has some type of a theme that they really like in their work. I have all these different tiny romantic attachments that I love putting in both my writing and in my artwork. Old books, attic finds, corsets, very antique, delicate, tiny things. Things that seem like you couldn't pick them up unless you had the lightest touch. I don't know. I can't even explain them because so many of them are non-corporeal, delicate little ideas. And I want them in my work because it seems like I should capture them there. I don't know how much of this video is actually of any help to anybody. This is mostly just my blathering. But sometimes I have to get my ideas out. I do storyboard type of things. Not you can see that. That was for a comic that never panned out. Sometimes I will do line art that I will color digitally. Sometimes I will do sketches of mundane things such as my hands. I carry my sketchbook everywhere. I've said this multiple times. I glue things in my sketchbooks to try and stay relevant to my interests. I'll do ballpoint sketches of things that I like. This other side, all this little tiny lines you probably can't see, are all movie quotes from just ideas of things I want to turn into something else. Sketches of all kinds of things that I can find. Sometimes sketches of friends, random bits of information, doodles of my surroundings. I was waiting for a midnight movie outside a coffee shop, and I looked up at the overhang and it had a hole in it, so I drew it because it seemed like something of interest. Sometimes I will do bad little comics. I always am trying to pin down my thoughts. I liked the idea of an insect collection and butterfly collections because I like this idea of being able to line things up in this very pretty, controlled way. And sometimes creating is really, really hard, and I will have dry spells where I can't make anything. And that's so hard because then I'll have a manic, crazy 3 days where I haven't eaten and I haven't slept more than an hour because I've just been creating. It's difficult. And when people say, I wish I could draw, I wish I could create, I wish I could, I wish, you can, but to be an artist on the level that I've been focusing on is kind of dangerous to your health. Consider this something to think about when it comes to creating. It's a blessing and a curse. I love making things, and I love making things that other people are able to get use out of, because I can't make use out of everything I make. I make so much crap sometimes. Sometimes I have all these ideas and I have to make them, and then I realize that they're useless and they're bad, but at least it's out of my system. Creating is a very labor-intensive process. It takes a lot away from you. In regards to the asexual thing, I kind of consider it my advantage, because the only real love in my life is my art and creating. And when I'm able to devote myself that fully to something, I don't really need other people on a romantic level. I don't get it. My art is my first love, and it's the most important thing to me, and it might destroy me, but it also makes me who I am. So people have asked me for creative advice, or advice on art, and I really can't tell you. You have to sort of discover it for yourself. You have to change your perceptions of things, keep your imagination wide open. It leaves you susceptible to all kinds of things. It might make you paranoid and crazy, like it did through my youth and up till lately. I'm always making things. I can't not. If I did, I'd probably go crazy and die. And whenever I'm not making something, I'm learning. So whenever I'm not able to make something in person, I want to learn so I can continue to make new things. So whenever I have dry spells of art, something I try and do is, if I'm not able to write or draw, I'll read. I'll watch documentaries. I'll usually go for nonfiction type of stuff. Or I'll go for folklore. I spent 3 months last year studying Dracula and Eastern culture philosophies. Eastern European culture philosophies, superstitious habits, wards against vampirism. I go on study binges. I've said that multiple times in multiple videos. And people say, you're lucky to be smart, and I say it's also a curse, the same way the art thing is. My head is a busy place. I never get a moment's peace. It's why I have insomnia. It's why sometimes I will not have any will to do anything. But it makes me who I am. So it is, in that way, a blessing. But it's a curse because it's also made me totally wacko. Anyway, so this will be my last video for a little bit. I am going to Portland and Seattle to visit some friends and family for a week. So there'll probably be quiet on the internet from me. Everything on Tumblr is probably going to be queued like always. Anyway, till next time, Darklings.